If you have a bad plan, then all that's going to happen with AI is your bad plan is going to be automated. You're going to fail a lot faster. So choosing your business partner is probably the most important decision that you will ever make in business. People think that accounting is all about math and numbers. It's actually more about organization. Have you ever gone camping together? Because running business is a lot like camping. Like somebody forgets something, it rains, you're cold, you're not in a good mood, it's tough. But if you've been through that with someone, then I think that you have a higher probability of running a good business because you have been through tough situations together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the En Route to Discovery podcast. I'm Mia, and today we have a guest who my dad has been talking about bringing on for a while now, and I'm glad it finally came together. Harrison Clarke is the managing partner of Clarke & Con Consulting, an accounting and consulting firm in the Greater Toronto Area that works exclusively with entrepreneurs and founders. Before we jump into any of that, here is a bit more about Harrison. He grew up watching both parents run their own businesses, spent years at summer camp, and came back as a counselor, and then went to Chile to teach before coming home to find something of his own. Oh, and he's a triathlete who does adventure backpacking in his spare time. My dad knows him personally, so this one already has some good energy behind it. Harrison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me and making the time. Great to be here.
Awesome, buddy. I'm so glad we finally got this to happen, long overdue, and thank you so much for your time this morning. How we do things, we like to jump right into the questions here. So I wanted to roll right in, Harrison. And I understand that you were growing up, both of your parents were entrepreneurs. And it seems to be a theme with some of our guests so far. I'm familiar with that. Growing up watching that, watching the grind, watching the stress and watching the reward that comes with that, all of that. Do you think that's what set the stage for you, or was it something else that pulled you in to be an entrepreneur yourself?
I think that's what absolutely set the stage. And growing up and talking to my other friends about what we wanted to be when we grew up, they always wanted to work at particular companies or do certain jobs. And I didn't have an answer to this always. And when I did have an answer, it was always as an individual contributor or running my own shop, doing something like that. And I thought that that was kind of strange because I didn't necessarily fit in with what everybody else was saying. I am, and even in the university post, I never saw myself working for anyone else. And that was because I'd watched my parents when I was younger. My dad started off his career as a general contractor in carpentry, and then he became one of the first home inspectors in Ontario in the 80s when the occupation was just invented. And then my mom, she went back to school when I was around 9 or 10 years old to become a nutritionist, started her own company, as well as providing personal training and yoga instructor services. So I saw both of them running their own shop, building their own businesses, and seeing how it was able to create a life for our family and our brothers in a way that provided so much flexibility and opportunity that seeing it, looking back now, absolutely that had an effect in laying the stage in how I view life and how I view work and entrepreneurship.
Any follow-up to that, Mia?
Okay, yeah. Before the business world, you spent years at summer camp, first as a camper, then you came back as a counselor. My dad and I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I know firsthand that those environments can shape you in ways a classroom just never could. What did those years actually give you?
That's a great question. So my line is that in some ways I learned way more about people, about teamwork, about leadership and corporate culture around the campfire and in a canoe than I ever did working on Bay Street. And that's because summer camp is such an intense, weird, wonderful social experiment. You're taking a bunch of young people that have diverse backgrounds, you're putting them in the woods together for a few weeks, and the adults in the room are actually just teenagers who are responsible for their lives and making sure that everybody's having a good time and getting along. What an amazing experience for a young person. Now that I think back about it, I was truly lucky. You learn how to work with other people. You learn more about yourself. You get such great understanding of social dynamics. You have the opportunity to public speak. You have the opportunity to make mistakes in front of people and then laugh about them later. And some of my best friends come from that period of time, from when I was 9 years old to 21. And so it laid the foundation for me later on when I entered in the quote unquote corporate world, because I felt like I had almost like a level up compared to some of my peers that didn't have that experience of responsibility, of leadership, being in such an intense environment where the team and the individual were so in focus. So I don't take that experience for granted at all.
That's fantastic. I think before you jump back in, Mia, I think that's important for our young listeners. And many times we don't realize that's happening when we're going through that process as young individuals, whatever the experiences in life. And now that you're looking back and you see, yeah, you were a level up on them because you had that experience. I think a lot of times it's like about connecting those dots, like that gave you that upper edge of working with people, the teamwork and everything else. So that's fantastic. Any follow up on that, Mia?
No, he pretty much answered my follow-up for that too.
Okay.
I'll
So
try
what's
not to
next
answer
on the
them as well so that there's more follow-up after.
No, it's all good, my friend. Go ahead, Mia. What's up next?
Okay. At some point, you went to Chile to teach, which doesn't sound like it has much to do with accounting or business. My dad and I have been traveling full time, and I know what it does to you when you put yourself somewhere completely unfamiliar. What were you looking for in that chapter of your life, and what did you come back with?
Well, I didn't realize this at the time, but I think my mom put it best. She said I was looking for an adventure. So after I graduated university, I did not want to enter into the workforce right away. Definitely did not want to go back and do more schooling. I wanted to go out and see the world. And so I had a geography teacher that said to the whole class, the best thing that you guys can do after university, if you have the opportunity to, is travel and see the world. But don't go to Europe. Go to Europe when you're older. Okay? Trust me, it'll still be a museum in 40 or 50 years. Go to the places that are dangerous, that you wouldn't necessarily go to when you're older. Because you guys are young, you're stupid, and you've got the time. Go there. So this mentality, combined with the fact that my favorite course at university was Latin American politics and culture, I decided that I wanted to go somewhere in Latin America to teach. And the reason it was Latin America is because I wanted to learn Spanish. And the best way to learn a language is to actually live and breathe the culture on a daily basis so that you're immersed in it and you have no choice. Like, you have to buy food, and you have to have fun and you have to ask people for directions. So I on purposely put myself in a situation where I could do that. And my cousin had taught English in Taiwan, and he recommended that as the path to live in another country and get a little bit of money, just enough to pay for your rent and your food, right? Like the basics. And so I ended up applying for a program that connected English teachers with schools in Chile. And the reason that it was Chile was because I had a friend whose mom worked for this program, so I could trust it. And I did not study education. I studied economics, but it's so easy for us native English speakers to get jobs as English teachers around the world. So I took a course at U of T over the course of 3 weekends, and then a 2-hour exam at the end. And then all of a sudden, I'm a certified English as a second language teacher. So that was my ticket. I ended up leaving Toronto, went with my buddy down to Costa Rica. You guys might know where that is. And we
Good
were there for
segue
about a
here. I'll
month.
get into in a minute, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And then I continued my way down south to Santiago, and that's where I started my quote unquote teaching career. So I worked at a school where I saw every single student from junior kindergarten to grade 12, at least once a week. I was in every single class. And so that's how I went down to Chile. That originally was the reason why. And then
Wow,
my
what
life
amazing.
kind of,
That was an amazing thing to pave the way and give you a different experience. And you did mention Costa Rica, and I have to apologize. I'm not sure if you can hear Harrison in the back, but our audience listening at home, we are sitting in Costa Rica right now, Mia and I, and we're recording this podcast. And I keep putting myself on mute because the people who were picking the mangoes from the mango tree just showed up. And so if you can hear that, or the gentleman who's raking the yard next to us, if you hear that, I apologize, but that's life on the road. And it's one of those things that you just have to roll with it. But
These are great problems
um,
to have.
yeah, I can't complain about it. We've been blessed to be able to travel with our family like this, and Costa Rica has been a beautiful place. So I want to transition a little bit and ask some questions more about the accounting and that background. Our listeners, a lot of times, are entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. Sometimes they're even before, like, that typical, early stage business. Some of them just have passion projects or side hustles and stuff. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. And Mia's going to have some questions because that's the stage she's in. And then we'll transition into some other things. So I guess my first question for you, Harrison, is, what's the biggest mistake that you're seeing right now from people who are just getting started? Like, is there something that, it's the thing that's so obvious to somebody who does accounting, bookkeeping, and consulting that the young entrepreneur might not see? So is there anything that kind of jumps out as a mistake that people make early?
Well, yes, it doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with accounting. It is related to cash flow, but people don't spend enough time at the beginning thinking about how they're going to sell their product, what their go-to-market strategy is. In today's day and age, building it is so easy, relatively, compared to marketing it and selling it. So even before you think about building your product or how you're going to deliver your service and the whole operation behind it, think about, how am I going to sell this? What are my go-to-market strategies? What am I going to do for outbound, for inbound, for partnerships? What does my personal network look like, who I can leverage? What is my client success program going to look like? How am I going to be able to upsell? Am I going to be able to get referrals from them? Um, Ultimately, it's a lot easier for us to forecast our expenses. We have a lot more control over those. The reason that I'm seeing a lot of startups and small businesses struggle at the beginning is because of the sales side. They don't know how hard that's going to be until they actually do it. And I would say that you have to spend more time at the beginning thinking about that, because that's going to have effect on cash flow in the short term, and of course, always. So I would say that's.
Fantastic. And I know, Mia, I see the questions that you have for yourself, and that kind of ties into the next question.
Is it actually that bad to mix my personal money and my business money early on? Like, does it matter when you're just starting out?
So actually, this was going to be the second point that I could have responded to the previous question on. Um, there's a lot of really important, basic, boring steps that entrepreneurs have to do at the beginning when it comes to their accounting, finances, and tax. And if you were to use your own personal funds for your business, you're not going to be the first entrepreneur in the world to do this. And I promise you, you're not going to be the last as well. It's just the nature of the beast. A lot of the times we're not sure about incorporating at the beginning. We're not sure about starting the business, but we do need to put a little bit of our own personal funds into maybe purchasing a software or maybe hiring a contractor, something like that. Keep track of all of those at the beginning. So a simple Excel spreadsheet that has 4 to 5 columns, the first one being the date of the transaction. The next is the accounts that it was in, so your personal credit card or your personal checking account, and then a description of what it was. Maybe you just copy and paste whatever it says on your bank statement, and then put in the category. So this was an office expense, or this was developer expense, or this was a software expense. Include whether or not it had HST or GST or PST, and then add a note at the end if it provides more commentary. Because people think that accounting is all about math and numbers. It's actually more about organization than anything at the end of the day. So simple Excel spreadsheet, keep track of all of these personal expenses. Why? Because the business, once you do incorporate, actually can pay you that money back. Okay? Even before you're incorporated. The CRA treats all of these as expenses at the beginning that are related to building the business. And so you can withdraw that from your business bank account, and we'll get to that in a second, tax-free. So it's not going to be taxed as income. Okay. It's basically like a loan that you've given the business and the business has to pay you back. Or we call that a shareholder advance if it's just temporary. So now that being said, we don't want to keep using our own personal funds for business expenses forever. right? That's not best practice. So as soon as possible, please register your business. And that might be a sole prop at the beginning. It might be incorporation. You can have a discussion with either a corporate lawyer or an accountant or some of your friends, or just, do
So
some
I'm going to
research.
jump in. So when should people be registering the business? Like right away, as soon as possible, or that was because
Ooh.
that's my next question. Sorry about that. Like, I wanted to jump in and just say, like, so people like Mia. Mia has a little side hustle. She has bracelet business, and it sounds like, oh, it's just a fun thing a kid's doing, but she's actually starting to make money at it, and she has like her Etsy shop, and she has an online store and stuff. So, at what point do you want to register a business?
I'm going to give the classic rule that consultants will love to give for advisors, which is it
Perfect.
depends. It depends, right? Um, so I would look at what your projected sales are in the short term and the long term, and then I would also look at how I am much what your expenses are going to be in the short term or long term. If you were thinking about growing this thing to be hundreds of thousands or more millions of dollars in revenue, then incorporating at the beginning would be a good idea. But if it's something that you're just starting out, maybe wait until you get to around $100,000 in revenue before you start thinking about maybe incorporating. Um, another thing is to ask yourself, how likely is it for me to get sued by providing my services and selling my product? Because what a corporation does is it acts as a protective layer between you and the outside world. Because at the end of the day, it's your corporation is the one being sued, not necessarily yourself. And so I would ask that question to my clients as well. Like, what's your liability like from a legal perspective? How at risk are we? Um, that being said, people often don't realize this, but there's a whole lot of rules and more admin work and more costs when it comes to incorporating. And it's not always worth it at the time. If you're just if you're in Ontario or Canada, it's a sole proprietorship. And that is a lot simpler at the end of the day. So I would recommend, if it's simple, sole prop. If you're thinking about growing it or you have a high liability risk, incorporate.
So let me ask you, people always ask me, like, do you have to register anything for that, or does that just take place on your taxes at the end?
It's best to register. It's best to register. You can do that through, if I'm in Toronto right now, so you can do that through Service Ontario to register your business. Um, yeah, I would say so.
All right, the wind just kicked up here, so I'm going to send it over to you, Mia, for question number 5.
Okay. Everyone right now is hearing that AI can help you start a business in a weekend. My dad talks about this a lot, actually. You can build a website, get customers, start selling, all of it. But I'm guessing from where you sit, that doesn't mean someone is actually ready for business. What are you seeing? What's your view of all of this AI talk
From the lens of accounting or just in general?
in general?
So if you have a clear go-to-market strategy, and if you have a clear, and I'm going to say clear and correct go-to-market strategy, if you have a clear and correct understanding of your product market fit, if you have a clear and correct understanding of your messaging, if you have a clear and correct understanding of your operations and your business model, then yes, you can build a company within a weekend, because you are going to be able to automate so much of what you do, and you're going to be able to find your customer, say the right message, interact with them on all those touch points in the right way at the right time, and you will be able to make sales. But you can't you you can automate one. If you have a bad plan, then all that's going to happen with AI is your bad plan is going to be automated. You're going to fail a lot faster. And if you have a good plan, but a poor process, and you've got gaps in those processes, then AI is just going to find those gaps faster, and you're not going to be going anywhere. So you have to think about, what is your workflow and what is my strategy and what is the step-by-step process that needs to be done first, before you even think about using AI. So that's my take on it. It's possible, but not a lot of, but entrepreneurs, we don't always know until we start and we bump into a wall and we make a mistake. So, okay, whoa, that's not good. We've got to make a fix there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we say when we're mentoring, and in my past experience, as you know, working at the accelerator, is you got to be able to fail fast. So I guess you just made a good point. The one good thing about AI is it'll help you fail faster because it's going to amplify the speed.
Yeah.
So I think that answered your question, Mia. Where are you moving next with your questions? What do you have next for Harrison?
Um, okay. So I'm sure because of AI and the speed of everything now, there are going to be situations where someone builds something, starts making money, and then realizes they have no idea what's actually happening on the financial side. How common is that and how bad can it get?
It's very common. It can get pretty bad. And so this goes back to the previous question regarding the personal funds of the bank account. You need to have the important, basic, and boring structure in place from a financial standpoint. So people think that accountants and the finance team are just back end, but in more, we're more like the backbone of the organization. If your backbone is weak, if you don't have that foundational structure in place, then the whole business is going to collapse. And so, boring basic thing: register your business either with Service Ontario or with the CRA. Like, get a business number. Think about whether or not you're going to have to register for HST. Um, get a business bank account, and if you can, get a business credit card. Get a business savings account too. Why not? And then use those cards for business purposes and use your personal cards only for personal purposes. Because AI is not always going to know when it reads your statement whether or not that e-transfer or this expense related to the business or if it was personal. If you're mixing and matching and if you're transferring between the different accounts, it's not necessarily going to know always. So once the business bank accounts are set up and you're using them appropriately and correctly, then we can talk about connecting that to a software, and maybe it's a software that's tried and proven, like QuickBooks or Xero or Puzzle, and then we can start looking at AI automation. Perhaps like you set up some own rules for yourself in order to allocate the transactions correctly. Um, there's whole new FP&A tools when it comes down to, and by FP&A I mean financial planning and analysis. So actually reviewing the numbers and then helping you create scenarios, decision making, things that an advisor would traditionally do. That being said, when you're just starting off in your first or second year, you're probably not always going to need that kind of advanced FP&A tool or that level of analytics when it comes to your financials, because not there might not be that much activity, right? You're going to know about your business way more than any AI tool will, because there's so much that has to happen first from your ends. There's not enough
So
to
true.
analyze. So I think that at the beginning, more human effort is involved from an analytical and creativity standpoint. Once you get larger, maybe you do more than 300, 400K in ARR, definitely over a million. There's going to be more activity. There's going to be more analysis. There's going to be more unknowns. You're going to know the business a lot better. So you'll be able to train your AI tool about that more, so it knows what to look for. Now, that being said, if you to work with a good accountant or a good financial advisor, not financial advisor, they usually handle your investments and your wealth and will charge you those mutual fund fees. But some kind of unbiased third party individual or firm who can help you with the financial strategy of growing your business, who's also using AI, that is wonderful. That is the ideal scenario.
Perfect. And the second part of her question about how bad it can get, I think that leads into your seventh question there, Mia, if you want to just roll with that one.
Yeah. Is it significantly harder to fix things later if you leave it? Or maybe for someone listening at home who is there now, if you find yourself in this situation, what should you do to get things back on track?
Well, the first step to solving a problem is recognizing that there's a problem. And if you have back taxes that are due, or if you have business expenses or business transactions that have only been used in your personal account to date, you know that this is an issue. You know that you have to solve this. AI if you reach out to that as your first step, will direct you to solving them. That being said, I think that it's best for you to reach out to a bookkeeper or an accountant, potentially a corporate lawyer, another entrepreneur, business owner that you know that you trust, and then they could recommend you to an accounting firm that could solve this for you. So it's just best to solve these problems immediately. The CRA does not forgive, no forget.
At what point should somebody stop treating a side hustle or a project like as a side hustle and like maybe the money's not there yet or whatever, but at what point does it switch from being a side hustle to, okay, this is a business I got to take seriously or whatever? Is there something in their gut? Is there something on paper? Is there something financially? Is there, like you mentioned, $100,000, you mentioned $1 million and everything. Is there a certain point where somebody's been working on something and they're like, you know what, I could make a go of this, or I should really put some more thought into this? Do you have a gut reading on that where you see that tend to happen?
Well, I can tell you about my own personal story and when I
Yeah,
decided
perfect.
to stop treating Clark and Con as my side hustle and when I decided to go
Okay.
full time. And it was a mix of logic and analytics, and then also gut and emotional. And so I had a very good job at a great company, and there was growth opportunity there. And I really liked where I was. At the same time, I was growing my own company as a side hustle at the same time, and which I also saw the opportunity, and I also really liked what I was doing. But the money was not there yet. So the first step for me was I need to ensure that this side hustle grows to the point where it can pay me enough to cover my monthly expenses so that I'm not financially stressed. Because there are people in my life that I have to take care of. Um, and if I'm financially stressed, that's not going to do any good to the business or to my clients because I'm just going to be thinking about this the whole time. So we had to wait some time for the business to do that. Um, the second was looking at what the different growth opportunities were. So if I were to stay at my cushy 6-figure salary job at this great company, what best case scenario? What are my earnings going to be like in the next 5 or 10 years? Best case scenario, let's say. So in my world, I was a sales leader, financial and accounting software company. And I thought, okay, if I hit my target every single year, then this is what my income is going to be. And then I said, okay, let's say moderate case scenario. If I go full time on Clark and Con, what are my earnings going to be and what are my accumulated savings going to be for that period of time? And so this is the analytical side to it and the logical side to it that aided me in my decision making. It basically it was going to take 7 years for me to break even on this decision of going full time on the side hustle. So I thought, okay, so am I ready and prepared to make a decision to go full time on this where I will not be as good over the next 7 years as if I were to stay in this job? And I thought, yes, I'm okay. That is worth the risk. I'm a long-term thinker. I've got a long-term focus when it comes down to it. 7 years in the grand scheme of things isn't that long period of time. And I'm unfortunate. I'm relatively young, just like early 30s, mid 30s now. And I was ready for it. I also spoke to my wife and I said, this is what I'm doing. This is my thoughts. And she said, just go for it. Like, I believe in you. And I thought, don't you want to be a little bit more conservative on this? Like, and she said, no, I believe in you. Go for it. But other people are not going to have that case. They're not going to be so lucky. I've got another client who was in a similar situation to me. And when he told his wife that he wanted to start his own business and leave, she cried because she was so afraid. She was so nervous. And so, but at the end of the day, he did it and she supported him. And I think both of them are glad for what they did. So look at your current scenario. Do make sure that your monthly expenses are covered, or at least you have a path to cover them in the short term with some clarity. And then also do a cost benefit analysis to determine, okay, this is what I'm sacrificing over the short term, but this is what I will be gaining over the medium to long term.
That that was broken down so perfectly. And I think I'm going to be able to cut that as a real good lesson, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we don't factor in all that stuff. And especially the family side of it, in your client's idea that it worked out, but that could have easily not worked out. And then it adds out more stress to the relationship and everything. So I think that's very important. I think the way that you broke it down, and your break even was 7 years, and the age you are now and all that, like you broke that down so well. I really, really appreciate that. I think that's, sometimes we do these conversations and there's like this, oh yeah, we got it right there. That there's something right there that people should be listening to. So I think that was great. Mia, the last question on that list, I think before we start thinking about wrapping up, because we do know that Harrison has clients. So
Yeah.
what do you,
I also have a cat that wants to go outside, so I've got to open the door here.
okay.
She doesn't know
All
that
right.
we're doing this.
No, you didn't tell her ahead of time?
Yeah,
The cat whisperer?
yeah.
Okay. So Mia, over to you.
Okay. If someone is listening to this right now and they're pre-revenue, just getting started, what's the one thing they should go do this week?
That they should go do this week.
Go do this week. What's
They're
something that you
pre-revenue.
should do?
Well,
Yeah, and
I
it
don't
doesn't
know
really
what
have to be pre-revenue. Early stage.
early stage.
Yeah.
So without knowing what they've done previously, because that would
Mhm.
always be my questions, like, tell me about your journey to date. Like, what have you done? And I would ask all these questions. But I would say, to go back to one of my answers at the first time, think again or review about your go-to-market strategy. And how I like to think about your go-to-market strategy is 5 different channels. So first is your personal network, your friends and family. Who do I know that could be a potential client, or that is in this space and could refer me to potential clients? So leveraging your own network in order to get your first customers, because you already have your trust with them. Like, that's huge when it comes to sales and people buying your product. The second is your outbound strategy. So that's where we go out hunting for customers. Doesn't matter if you've got the best products in the world. If nobody knows you, then nobody cares. You've got to go out and you've got to find them. Next is inbound. So when people come to us, so does our website really resonate um, with our audience? Most people only spend 45 seconds on a website before they make a judgment. So does your website talk more about the problems that your customer is solving? That your customer is experiencing and that you can solve, rather than talking about how great you are on your website. The fourth is partnerships. So what's another organization or person that I can align with that has the same customer as I do, and we could work together somehow? That's a mutually beneficial partnership. So, with me, it's incubators, it's accelerators, it's the Business Development Bank of Canada, it's Futurepreneur, it's all of these groups and organizations that are servicing entrepreneurs, the same way that I service entrepreneurs. So that's an example of a partnership. And then the last is client success, which is where we focus on our customer and our clients in order to service them better, upsell, cross-sell, get some referrals from them, get some testimonials for us to drive more revenue. So think about this week. If you're an entrepreneur, you should think about your go-to-market strategy and these 5 channels and what your strategy and your tactics are for each of them.
That's amazing. Incredible. We're getting a little bit of a speed round. We haven't done this with any podcast. So
Okay.
kind of the real quick ones. First gut instinct, don't overthink it. Quick, and we'll close it out with a little bit of a speed round. Mia, what do you think?
Okay. So all 5 of the questions
Yeah, rip through them.
for the speed round? Okay. AI for accounting, is it a helpful tool or just a false safety net?
Both. It has to be done right. There are tools right now that say that they're fully AI automated. That being said, if you were to use one of those tools just yourself, how are you going to confirm that it's being done correctly?
Yes.
And so that's why, at least today, where we're at right now is, you need to be, if you're an entrepreneur or a founder, you need to be working with an accounting firm that utilizes AI tools. So one, why? They're going to be more efficient, which means that the cost to you is going to be less. And two, they're going to be able to provide other services that have higher value and that you actually need that AI can't replace completely at this time, which is more advisory and helping you grow your business and helping you make decisions. So you have to choose the right AI tool that is being used by the right accounting team.
Got it.
But
Not
by the time that
exactly
this
the speed
podcast is
round.
edited
Not
or
exactly the speed
released,
round, but definitely valuable and important information. So I love it. I love it. I love it. But I also want to keep this going quick because we do want to be up against the clock with
so do I just say
being.
yes or no?
Well, just a couple words or whatever. We're just trying something new here, but I think it was a
Okay,
great answer,
gotcha.
so I'm not going to knock you. But for the next four, we'll just go with a little quick one sentence. In this viral world that we live in, good little clips is what we're going for here. I'll tell you the truth.
Okay,
So,
sounds good.
uh,
Now I know.
Mia, go ahead.
Okay. One thing every founder should do in the first 30 days that has nothing to do with their product.
Think about how to sell the product. No, nothing to do. Start a business bank account and get a business credit card.
Good. Mia,
When does a side hustle actually become a real business?
When it is your primary source of income and you're spending most of your time on it.
Do you prefer trail or pavement?
Trail. Yeah, I like being around
Okay.
trees.
And then one thing you know now that you wish you knew on day one.
Think about how you are going to sell. Think about your messaging. Think about who your client is and what problems you're going to solve for them.
fantastic. Fantastic.
There we go.
Mia,
Okay.
I love ending right there. There's a couple more that we could go into, but I think that's so important. And I work with entrepreneurs all the time. And we all have great ideas and we all have all these, you know, things that we think we're solving, and we ask our friends and we ask our family, but we don't go out and ask the market. And so you really have to go out. And I think following up on what you just said there is think about how you're going to sell it. Think about who your customer is. I think you've given some great advice there, Harrison. And Mia, do we have anything else, or is that a good way to end?
That was a good way to end.
All right. Um, I know that we started out with a little bit of in-person stuff. Then we transitioned in a little bit of, you know, um, the bones of early stage. But you don't just work with early stage. But I do appreciate, because it's coming from the perspective of Mia and, you know, young entrepreneurship. I do appreciate you going into that. But give me a little bit of a insight of who you work with. Tell me a little bit about your practice, who you work with, and, you know, if people wanted to reach out to you, where do they get in touch with you? What's the first stage? How do you like to work with people? And I think this is important. This is not a sales pitch of you or anything. This is just when you're selecting a team and you're selecting partners, what is it that you do as a business that gives the reassurance? Like, I know that I met you at Reignite and you brought clients with you and you talk about meetings and stuff. You're not like, you know, I'm hiring you as a consulting. I'm hiring you as a, as an accountant, and I'm going to see you at tax time and that's it. Tell me a little bit about how you work, who your ideal client is, and how that plays into picking partners going forward, whether it's accounting or whether it's software, whether it's whatever. Tell me your view on all that.
Sounds good. So we work with entrepreneurs and their businesses. So we work for the humans and their families that run these businesses, as well as the businesses themselves. And it's important to distinguish those two because a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners want to work with an accounting team that has a holistic understanding of both worlds. Because at the end of the day, work and the company is just a tool for them to achieve what they want to in their personal life. So how can we structure the business? How can we utilize the business in a way that can maximize the benefit for the business owner as well as their family members, like their wife and their kids? the companies will be anywhere between pre-revenue, maybe even pre-idea, to around $10 million in revenue. And so our idea is, let's work with companies that are very early stage. Let's align on what the short, medium, and long-term goals are, and then let's build a plan in order to reach those goals. What I say to new clients is, I'd like us to pass the dinner test, where in 20 years we're at a restaurant together having dinner, and we're talking about all the cool stuff that we've achieved together, and then also what's next. So we're all about long-term relationships when it comes down to it, and it all starts with a goal and then a plan, and we execute that plan. To date, we've worked with multiple industries. We have a special focus on tech and SaaS. And we are thinking about potentially focusing our niche, but today we've been industry agnostic. The one focus and niche that we've really leaned in on has nothing to do with industry, but actually has to do with life cycles. So companies that are in their first year or maybe in the first 3 years, and they started working with us, and then we've helped them along their growth journey. What we do, the way that I think about ourselves is we're your accounting team on steroids. So we don't want you to think that we are another party or that we're another firm or that we're just this outside consulting firm. We want you to see us as part of your team, as an integrated member. So that means understanding your business just as well as you do, as well as understanding your personal situation just as well as you do, because we have to make decisions together at the end of the day. And the only way we're going to be able to make decisions together is if we've got a good understanding of both. So we'll do bookkeeping, we'll do the tax, we'll do advisory, any foundational operational stuff regarding finance, accounting, and tax, we will help with, just to make sure that you've got that structure in place from the beginning. And once that structure is in place, that's when the fun really starts. It's more financial strategy, it's growth strategies, it's decision making, how many people are going to hire, when, what is their pay rate going to be. There's a big capital expenditure coming up. Do we need to get a loan for this? Do we need to go for funding? These kinds of conversations that we'll have with our clients. And to answer one of the questions you got at the end there, and this is where I'll cap off. What I look for in a client is, I don't look for a founder. At the beginning, I look for founders, actually. So ideally 2 to 3. It is possible to run a very successful business with as a solopreneur. Both my parents are examples of that. And I do have clients that are solopreneurs as well. It's just a lot more difficult. When there's 2 to 3, I find that the founders have gone through that ideation stage and the product is a lot more sound than it was before, because people were challenging it. They're challenging each other. And the idea has just been through that rock machine, that Steve Jobs metaphor, if you're familiar with that. And so it comes out as a really nice, polished, quality product. 2, I believe that they need to have be a subject matter expert of their space and the product and their client, the product they're solving, and they've got to be passionate about it. Those are the 3 top things I look for before bringing on a client.
I think that's so important. And the fact that you look for a certain ideal client is great, because some people out there are just, they'll take money from anybody and they're not the best. So I guess what I'm hearing here for people who are listening is really take time to get to know who your partners are going to be, especially your financial partners, because they're going to be with you for the long haul, especially when it's a place like Clark and Kahn. They're looking at the long term and they're partners for you. So you want somebody who has your best interests and not just you're another client to get another sale in the door. And that goes from every department. You did mention something very interesting there, and I wanted to close right at the end of that, but where you were saying there was 2 to 3 people ideally as founders, I think that brings up a big question. And I'm trying to teach that to my kids as entrepreneurs, like especially my older kid, my son, who's starting a little business of his own, and he has a partner, and I'll put in air quotes because they're still in their early days, but it's a property maintenance company. And a lot of young teenagers get into that. And I'm telling him, making sure that you're communicating what this looks like, because that could easily just, you could go through the motions of starting, like, we got this cool idea. You be the developer, I'll be the salesperson, or you be the guy who's out cutting grass, and I'll go get the whatever. And then it grows into this thing. And it's like all of a sudden now you have a partner and not everybody's on the same page as that. So if you're getting into a partnership, we didn't touch on this, but maybe you can touch a little bit about what are some of the important steps of that, because you want to make sure you're in the right position so that when money starts getting a little bigger, that can happen so quickly in some businesses. You want to make sure you're in the right position. So you want to just talk about that quickly, about making sure things are in order?
Sure. So choosing your business partner is probably the most important decision that you will ever make in business. Eh, it's one of the strongest legal relationships right beside marriage when it comes down to it. And we talk a lot about, choosing the right partner as far as like your spouse, your husband, wife, partner. And but we don't talk a lot about how to choose the right business partner and what we're looking for when it is one of, if not the most important decision you can make, because everything starts there. So there's two kinds of business partners. There's the ones that you know before, and then there's ones that you don't know. So this is my favorite, the ones that you do know. I am maybe you know each other from school, you're like friends, maybe you went to school together or you've worked together in the past. And have you ever gone camping together? That's one of my questions. Because running business is a lot like camping. Like somebody forgets something, it rains,
So
you're
true.
cold, you're not in a good mood, it's tough, you're hungry. And but if you've been through that with someone, then I think that you have a higher probability of running a good business because you have been through tough situations together. If you don't know the person that you're getting into with, maybe, I know that there's some incubators and accelerators that will partner or find potential candidates for you to start with. Maybe, they'll have the CEO, then they'll partner, they'll find you a partner for the CTO. I would recommend that you go for a hike together. I'd recommend that you go camping. Like you guys really need to get to know each other. What makes you tick, what your values are. A lot of the times we don't know how well we get along with someone until we have a disagreement. So, get into an argument, like talk about politics, talk about religion, talk about um, some of the things that are taboo in society, because you want to know how people are going to react when they get defensive. Um, you also need to have a conversation about expectations and ownership. So, who is responsible for what? And you could divide the business at a high level into different departments: sales, marketing, legal, HR, IT, cybersecurity, operations, one owner for each. And then you break down what the actions are and what they're responsible for. Then we're all aligned on expectations. And then we just go and execute. I think that 95% of human conflict, both professional and personal, is because expectations were not aligned. So let's define ownership, let's set expectations, and let's manage against those expectations with someone that you've built trust with as a good business partner.
Amazing. Amazing. And there's no better way to stop than right there. Again, Harrison, thank you so much for your time. I know we were talking about doing this for a while. I think that you and me might have met kind of unofficially at Reignite, but if not, maybe we'll see you at a future Reignite. And it's a good place to go camping with people and get to know your business partner. Actually, the first time I met Sean Stevens from Tree Frog, we went and we spent time together at Fireside, which was like the precursor to Reignite. So that's how I got to know him. Spent 3 days up in the cabin in the woods and talked about business, some of the expectations. So I attest to that. I guess we'll leave on that note, Mia, that if you haven't gone camping with your business partner, do it. We're all pro campers here. So thanks again, Harrison. Any last words, Mia?
Yeah, I actually learned, I hope everybody did at home too, but I actually learned a lot for myself that I didn't know before. Um, and I feel like this is exactly what we love. Like we started out getting to know you as a person, and then we eventually transitioned into something people can actually use. Thank you so much for being here and being so open about it.
Well, thank you both for having me. This was a lot of fun. And I hope that I behaved and I get invited back in the future. And maybe,
For
we
sure,
can
for
do this
sure.
in person somewhere cool around the world next time.
Sounds like a plan. And I don't know if I'll see you in the next few weeks at around Tech Week, but we're heading back to Canada in May, and so maybe we'll do a lunch or something. But thanks again. Appreciate your time, and
Thank
have
you.
a great rest of the week.
Cheers. Take care, everyone.